Welcome into the San Francisco 49ers Report. I'm Chase Sr. It's another Victory Monday right here on the show. And for those of you who tuned into our watch party last night, you knew the motto with the cowboy hat that we had, that red F Dallas. Well, George Kittle must watch the show as well, and he wanted to also send a subtle message to Cowboy fans out there. A hat trick for Kittle, one of the best games of his career with 3 touchdowns, all dimes from Brock Purdy. And after one of those touchdowns, he lifted up his jersey, and underneath his pads, a T-shirt that read F Dallas. So if that gets you pumped up, I want you to hit that thumbs up icon and like the video, because the Niners are 5-0, and coming up on today's show, we're going to recap news, rumors, injury report after that dub against Dallas, because there's so much to talk about with this football team here and so much to break down on the Niners front as well, because the news is certainly popping with this club. So without further ado, we want to start the official show, and let's do it. 49ers 5-0, and coming up on today's show, recapping the latest Niners news after pummeling the Dallas Cowboys. And really, I want to start with this. What a statement from this football team last night. The San Francisco 49ers, in all 5 games that they have played this year, continue to look like the best team in football. When you combine what they do defensively, suffocating their opponents, and the offense, which right now is unstoppable and playing at an unbelievable clip. The Niners totally embarrassed the number 1 overall defense in the National Football League last night. In all of the Cowboys' previous games, they had given up 41 points. On Sunday Night Football, in 60 minutes, the Cowboys surrendered 42 points to Kyle Shanahan and company. And you look at this one-sided bloodbath here. The Niners, 24 first downs to the Cowboys' 8. 421 total offensive yards to 197. Yards per play at 6.3 for Dallas. 4 red zone trips for the Niners, or 5 red zone trips. They capitalized on 4 of them. The Dallas Cowboys did not get inside the 20 one time against this Niners defense. And then, of course, because the Niners continue to suffocate their opponents, and they confuse you with the multiple looks, a really good pass rush, best linebacking core in the NFL with Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw. They confuse Dak Prescott. They force 3 interceptions from the mid-quarterback that is Dak, and of course Fred Warner getting involved with that peanut punch on Tony Pollard. Dak humiliated, embarrassed after that 32-point beatdown at the hands of the Niners, saying after the game at the post-game press conference, quote, "This might be the most humbling game that I have ever been a part of." And it was easy to see why. And a lot of people are now starting to doubt Dak. The Niners have had his number. He continues to come up small in some of these big spots. But can you say the same about Brock Purdy, who is now 2-0 against the Dallas Cowboys? Purdy this year now has 9 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. And the twosome of Purdy with Kyle Shanahan calling the plays in his ear, it's been dominant to the point where Purdy has still not lost a game in the regular season and has not lost a game in his career at the NFL level in which he has started it and finished it. The tallies for Purdy against Dallas and that number 1 defense, which is no longer the number 1 defense, they got throttled so badly, they're middle of the pack now across the NFL. Purdy slung it 24 times, completed 17 of those passes, 252 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks, and an average yards per catch of 10.5. And I wanted to point this out too, because this continues to be one of the themes this year for Purdy. And in particular, an area of the field that he targets that he's been nearly surgical. And I tweeted this out on X at Chase_Senior, that when targeting 10 to 19 yards beyond the line of scrimmage last night against the Cowboys, Purdy was 5 of 7 for 105 yards and 2 touchdowns. For the season, when throwing to the intermediate area of the field, again, 10 to 19 yards, Purdy, 27 of 31, 490 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks, and a perfect passer rating of 158.3. When Kyle Shanahan said a couple of months ago that Purdy is the real deal, a lot of people took exception with that. But was Kyle Shanahan right? Because what Purdy has displayed so far, timing, accuracy, anticipation, moxie, swagger, making plays out of structure, out of the pocket, and now to the point where he's completing throws all across the field from sideline to sideline, and now at all three levels. That's what has allowed this Niners offense to take that next leap. And once again, you look at the throw chart here for Brock Purdy. He completed all of his touchdown throws outside of the tackle box. So all of these touchdown throws, some showed touch, some showed some anticipation, some showed some velocity and arm strength. But look at the overall throwing chart here on those 17 completions on those 24 attempts. He is spraying the football all across the yard here, and it's taxing opposing defenses. More fascinating numbers from next-gen stats that Purdy throwing all 4 of those touchdown passes outside of the tackle box. That is the most in a game in the next-gen stats era. Purdy, 7 of 10 on passes over 10 air yards for a $166 and 3 touchdowns. He leads the NFL in completion percentage at 72.1% on such passes this year. People tried to say that Purdy was a dink and dunk passer. Some people still try to say that he doesn't have enough arm strength to complete throws at all 3 levels. He is proving the doubters wrong. And let's segue to that, because the numbers continue to be really impressive for Purdy. Let's get nerdy for Purdy. He is number 1 in adjusted expected points added per play among all quarterbacks in the NFL. He's number 1 in success rate and number 4 in completion percentage over expected. So even when he's not expected to complete a pass, he's completing it at a very, very high level. Still a lot to get to here on today's show, but first, I want to say thank you to the faithful for tuning in to our Cowboys watch party last night. Another massive success. 94,000 people tuned in throughout the night. We surpassed 93,000 subscribers. And if you were there watching with us, having a blast, the best place to experience the game outside of being at the game, I want you to type me right now. I also want you to get involved with Prize Picks. It's the number 1 independently run and largest daily fantasy sports app in North America, and it's daily fantasy sports made easy. Their more or less game is so much fun. And I want you to get involved at prizepicks.com/CLNS. And when you use the code CLNS, that's up to a $100 deposit match. For instance, you put $100 into your account, you get $100 back. Now, on Sunday Night Football, these were my 3 picks. You can't go 3 players on the same team. So I went Brandon Ayuk more than 4.5 catches. He had 4 because 1 got wiped out after that awful penalty on, I believe, Spencer Burford. Brock Purdy, less than 30.5 passing attempts. That 1 hit. And then I went Micah Parsons with the sack. If the game was closer, maybe Ayuk would have had another reception. Maybe Micah Parsons would have been able to have a sack. Either way, it makes game days fun. And again, you can see for yourself, prizepicks.com/CLNS, code CLNS for that up to $100 deposit match. It's daily fantasy sports made easy. Let's continue to move forward and go through all of the marquee storylines following the Niners win over the Dallas Cowboys. And I want to touch on the defensive side of the football here. Fred Warner does it week in, week out, and that's what great players do. Part of being great, production, of course. Part of being great, longevity, being available, and Fred Warner could check off all of those boxes. Fred Warner is a generational player. He's become one of my favorite players that I've ever watched put on a football uniform across the entire National Football League. He's smart, he's heady, he diagnoses things before they happen. He can read plays where he can hit the hole and pull off a sack on Dak Prescott like he did. He redirects traffic. He's a team captain. This guy is special, and I want you all to do yourselves a favor where don't just lock in on watching the football, the actual football during a play. Do yourselves a favor and just watch 54. Put the spotlight around him and watch him just play the game with his hair on fire, 100% effort. And we've also seen this over the last couple of weeks. Like 2 weeks ago, he's going stride for stride with Marquise Brown. Last year in the divisional round, step for step with C.D. Lamb. Last night, he was doing the same with Brandon Cooks. There are not a lot of linebackers who are able to do that. He's the best linebacker in the NFL right now, and it is not close. I agree with Nick Bosa when he says that. And I want you to look at this photo here because you can't just give credit to Fred Warner. You have to give credit to Dre Greenlaw, who brings the boom and that level of physicality and that smart football IQ to the linebacking group as well, which makes this 1-2 punch the best linebacking core in the NFL. And I want to see if you can spot a difference between this photo and this next photo right here. Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, Navarro Bowman, Patrick Willis. Is there a massive gap between these linebacker tandems? We're live right now on the Niners Report, and I posed this question as our poll question. Better Niners linebacking duo? Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, 66% of the votes right now. Bowman and Willis with 34%. I know that some of that is recency bias, but the point here being special linebacking duo in the Bay Area right now. What I'm also wanting to hit on the show here today, and I talked about this a little bit during our post-game show, is this tweet here to my right. The Cowboys talked about the Niners all week long. They were creepily obsessed. The Niners had this cool and calm focus and barely said anything. They let their play do the talking, and they put the beat down on those Cowboys. Final score 42-10. And I want to segue from Fred Warner to that because Fred Warner is a part of that silent confidence. He said in the locker room after the game, it's some of the most fun that he's had playing football. That's what it's all about, to take the opponent's soul. Top graded players on the offensive side of the football for the Niners, and some notes to go along with this. I'm happy that we finally saw some Jordan Mason. At some point, Christian McCaffrey has to have the workload lessened a little bit so that he can last the entire 17-game schedule. It is a physical position to play there. And you can see over the last few weeks, given the stellar play of McCaffrey and how much he's meant to this offense, that teams are really starting to target him. I've seen some dirty hits. I've seen some late hits. I've seen a little twist on a body part. I saw Leighton Vander Esch kind of grab him around his neck and throw him down. Avoid some of those big hits on McCaffrey. Play Jordan Mason a little bit more. He can play. He is a dude. So he was actually the top-graded offensive player for the Niners, according to Pro Football Focus, with a 91 overall grade. Brock Purdy earning an 85.3 grade. Brandon Ayuk, the second highest graded wideout, according to PFF this year. Third highest graded offensive player for the Niners on that side of the football last night with that 82.4 grade. George Kittle, 79.3. And then how about the job of Trent Williams, especially on Micah Parsons? Trent Williams put the clamps on Parsons, a guy who a lot of people are saying is the best defensive player in football right now. Williams did not allow a pressure on any of his 8 pass blocking matchups against Parsons. In 3 career matchups, Parsons has 2 pressures on 26 pass rushes against Williams. That is good for a 7.7% pressure rate. Niners pressures allowed last night. Williams, very, very good. Colton McKivitz gave up 3. Aaron Banks with 3. Spencer Burford 1. Trent Williams had 1. None of them against Micah Parsons, though. Jake Brendel with 1. Kyle Juszczyk did surrender a sack. John Feliciano did replace Aaron Banks. Had a clean sheet. And a big reason for the Niners' offensive efficiency, offensive explosion, and while we haven't seen a bunch of sacks of Brock Purdy, it's the play calling of Kyle Shanahan in addition to the play designs. It's also Purdy getting rid of the football fast and making quick decisions. It benefits him. It benefits the entire offense. The Niners completely neutralized Micah Parsons in that game last night. And that was a massive key going into it. 0 sacks, 0 hits, 2 quarterback hurries. It seemed as though anytime Parsons was coming off the edge, chip block here, chip block there, they made sure, the Niners did with their game plan, to not allow him to wreak havoc, and he didn't at all. We do have an Aaron Banks injury update. He left the game with a biceps injury. He did not return, at least according to Kyle Shanahan. They thought it was a biceps injury because he said this. We don't know yet. Fortunately, it was a higher one. The low ones are the ones you missed the year for, but we don't know if it was strained or pulled yet, but it was higher. Now, here's the newest update on Aaron Banks. It is actually a shoulder injury, which does attach to the biceps, but a shoulder injury. And Aaron Banks, who has been tremendous this year, is day to day. We'll see what his status is going into this game against the Cleveland Browns. That Cleveland team, very good defensive line. Myles Garrett did leave the last game with a boot on. Deshaun Watson might not play because he's still injured with a shoulder. We'll, of course, continue to monitor that all throughout the week. But that's great news on the Aaron Banks front on this Monday. The Niners quarterback pressures on the defensive side of the ball. This was a huge reason why the Niners were able to be so dominant against Dallas here. Nick Bosa had 7 quarterback pressures on Dak Prescott. Kevin Givens had 3. Really good game for number 90 last night, I thought. Javon Hargrave had 2. Eric Armstead was pushing the pocket all night long, 2. Talanoa Hufanga had a pressure. Drake Jackson, Dre Greenlaw, Fred Warner, Austin Bryant, all tallying pressures. And that was a big reason why Dak Prescott looked confused. He looked flustered. He doesn't do anything at an elite level. And that's a big reason also why he threw those 3 interceptions. Let's round out this segment with this. If you think the Niners are the best team in football, I want you to type SF. I think they're the best team in football right now. Niners, Eagles, Dolphins. That's my top 3. Feel free to list yours as well. This is the 49ers Report. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.